In session 38 here, we're going to take a look at a basic overview of formulas. And really formulas, all that they really are just algebraic equations that have been written to solve common types of problems in everyday life. So here's an example here of a formula. F equals 9/5 C plus 32. Some of you, I'm sure, already recognize that. This is the formula for determining the temperature outside in degrees Fahrenheit when you're given the temperature in Celsius. So another way of reading this is that the degrees Fahrenheit is going to equal 9/5 times your temperature that's in Celsius and then add 32 to it. So for example, if I were to throw in here a 0 for the Celsius degrees, the Celsius temperature, and I take that 0 and I multiply it by 9/5, 0 times 9/5 is 0, 0 plus 32 is 32. So when the Celsius is 0, the Fahrenheit is 32. And you should recognize that because 0 Celsius is the freezing point of water. And when the Celsius temperature is 0, what's the Fahrenheit? Well, the Fahrenheit's 32. A Fahrenheit temperature of 32 is also the freezing point of water. However, let's say that we are given the Fahrenheit temperature and what we want to do is figure out the Celsius. The Celsius is unknown. We're given the Fahrenheit. Well, it would be helpful to have a formula that had the Celsius by itself on the left-hand side instead of the Fahrenheit. Because if we just stuck in a number here, let's say the Fahrenheit's 100, then we're going to have to figure out, okay, 100 equals 9/5 times what plus 32? Well, that's more difficult to figure out. So what we need to do is switch the subject of this formula. The subject is the variable that's all by itself on the left-hand side of the formula. So in this formula here, the subject is the Fahrenheit variable. But what we want is the Celsius all by itself on the left-hand side. We want the Celsius to be the variable C for Celsius to be our subject. So in order to do that, we have to first of all solve this equation so that C is all by itself. Well, let's take a look at what's going on. Is C on both sides? Is the variable C on both sides of this equation? No, it's just on this right side. So let's just go ahead and leave it there. That Celsius is being multiplied by 9/5, and then that term is then being added with 32. So let's go ahead and get rid of that 32. How do we undo addition? We subtract. So if we subtract 32 from the left side, we also have to go ahead and subtract 32 from the right side, from both sides. Well, what is 9/5 C plus 32 minus 32? Well, the plus 32 and the minus 32, they cancel each other out. They make a 0. 0 plus 9/5 C is just simply 9/5 C. What do we have on the left-hand side? Well, what we have is F minus 32. Since we don't know what the exact value is for F, that variable, we can't get rid of it. So by subtracting 32, we simply write F minus 32. We still have the C all by itself, or excuse me, on just one side of the equation, but it's not quite by itself yet. What's happening? It's being multiplied by 9/5. So in order to undo that multiplication, we need to divide both sides by 9/5. Now, in order to do this, you need to remember something about dividing fractions. If we have a fraction here, we have 9/5 Celsius, 9/5 times C divided by 9/5. So if I were to rewrite that up here as 9/5 divided by 9/5, well, first of all, we should know right off the bat that's 1, because any number divided by itself is 1. However, when you're dividing fractions and calculating it out, what the method is that you take the number, the fraction that's to the right of the division sign, and you flip it, you invert it, and you keep the left side the same. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite this now as 9/5. On the right side, we invert it, we flip it, we take its reciprocal, and we change our division to a multiplication. At this point now, we then go ahead and multiply. You multiply your numerators together, which is 9 times 5. That equals 45. You then multiply your denominators together. 5 times 9 is 45. 45 over 45 is 1. So getting back here to f minus 32 divided by 9/5 and 9/5 times c divided by 9/5, we can quickly see that our right-hand side is just going to be left with the c, because 9/5 divided by 9/5, as we saw up here, is just 1, and 1 times c is c itself. Over here, however, what I'd like to do is just rewrite this over here on the right-hand side so that we can see it a little bit better. F minus 32, and then we're taking that and dividing it by 9/5. Well, f minus 32 is the same thing as f minus 32 over 1. We can make a fraction out of that. And then what happens is we flip this over, because remember, to divide by a fraction you have to flip over and then multiply. So on the right-hand side of this equation over here, we were left with the c. Well, what do we have then on the left-hand side after we flip this and change it to a multiplication? We have f minus 32 over 1, which is just f minus 32, and that's being multiplied by what? By 5/9. Because remember, dividing by 9/5 is the same thing as multiplying by 5/9. So our formula is now f minus 32 in parentheses times 5/9. The only thing that's missing in this formula is that normally your subject is written on the left-hand side. In this example, I've written it on the right-hand side because I haven't finished it yet. But all I would simply do then to make a formula out of it is just flip-flop sides. Put the c over on the left and put the parentheses f minus 32 parentheses times 5/9 on the right. Okay then, let's quickly take a look at two other formulas. This first one here is the circumference formula for a circle. The circumference is equal to 2 times pi times r. R stands for your radius, c stands for your circumference. But let's say we are told what our circumference is, but we need to figure out what our radius is. Well, it would probably be more helpful to have our formula rewritten with r as the subject, with r as the variable that's all by itself. So how do we do that? Well, we need to take a look at the formula as it exists. R is being multiplied by pi and times 2. So we can do these together, 2 times pi. In order to undo that 2 times pi, we have to divide by 2 times pi. And if we divide the right side by 2 pi, we also have to divide the left side by 2 pi. Well then, what are we left with on the right-hand side? Well, what's 2 times pi divided by 2 times pi? Well, that's 1. 1 times r is just simply r. And then what we have on the left-hand side is our circumference divided by 2 pi. And now to make a formula out of it whereby our subject is on the left-hand side, I would just flip-flop these two sides. The radius of a circle is equal to the circumference, c, divided by 2 pi. One last one over here. This is the area of a rectangle. Area equals L times W, length times width. Well, let's say I'm given the area and I'm given the length and I need to find the width. I want a formula where the width is for the rectangle, where the width is the subject. We do it the same way that we did the other problem. We want to solve this problem for W, get W all by itself. Well, right now W is just on the right-hand side of the equation and it's being multiplied by L. So let's go ahead and divide both sides by L. Now, what is L times W divided by L? Well, L divided by L is 1. 1 times W is just simply W. What's A divided by L? Well, those are two different variables, so we're just going to leave those alone. It's just simply A over L. And once again, normally for a formula, the subject is on the left side. So I'm going to flip-flop these two sides. and put W equals A over L. The width of a rectangle is equal to the area of the rectangle divided by the length of the rectangle. So then, as a review, a formula is just simply an algebraic equation that's used to solve many types of common problems. Next, formulas are typically written as one variable all by itself on the left-hand side of the equation, and all the other variables and constants are written on the right side. Next, in a formula, a variable that's written all by itself on the left side is called the subject. And then oftentimes it's helpful to change the subject of a formula to another one of the variables in order to solve a problem. And that's what we did on the very first example with changing the Fahrenheit formula to Celsius. And then just as a quick reminder here, F equals 9/5 C plus 32 is a formula for determining the temperature in Fahrenheit when you are given a temperature in Celsius. That finishes up session 38 on formulas.